So Saturday night sees two big fights here in the UK. It's David Haye versus Tony Bellew, and in the US, Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman. I don't have pay-per-view, so I'm not going to get a chance to see either live. Unfortunately, the only way I can watch boxing matches these days is when someone uploads them online, and in that case, only the high-definition ones are worth watching. So as a boxing fan, that's somewhat irritating, but that's just the way it is at the moment. I want to talk a little bit about Hey Bellew. Obviously, this is a big domestic fight. This is the cover of Boxing Monthly, February, February this year, and they always have good covers. Incidentally, I think standout covers. This was an interesting fight because I think it's a clash of the bad boys. That's how I see it. And my rationale for that is that these two guys are, it's almost like the opposite side of the coin to Joshua Klitschko. With Joshua Klitschko, there's a huge amount of respect between them. With these guys, there's zero respect between them. I can't remember seeing such bad blood between two fighters. Well, really, probably ever. Um, I mean, of course, with Joshua White, there was bad blood. With Frotch Groves there was, but this seems to be prolonged, and it seems to be real. I'm not saying the other ones weren't real, but I don't know. I've kind of mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I think the fact these two guys are both power punchers, the fact that they are both, hard hitters, and there is real intent here, indicates it's going to be a big fight. It's going to be at the O2 in London. Um, But frankly, I think that also raises some concerns. And this is why. The most important thing for a professional athlete, especially a professional boxer, is self control. Now, these guys really hate each other. That's certainly the impression they give. And if they're going into this fight with real intent to hurt the other guy, um, I have to admit that makes me slightly wary. Is someone going to throw punches with the intent to actually hurt, as opposed to winning the fight? Now, it might sound stupid, like obviously a punch is going to hurt. That's boxing. But I think it's down to their handlers to tone things down a little bit. I get that it makes great viewing, but we've come out of a year, 2016, where frankly the sports image, health wise, suffered badly. There was a tragic death of Mike Towell in the ring, which Tony Bellew has alluded to with his tribute T-shirts. Um, and there were other fighters who were put in comas and so on. So I think that I get that bad blood sells in a fight, but I think sometimes when it's this serious, you know, both of these guys need to remember that they're professional athletes. Which brings me to the next point. Again, it can be interesting viewing, especially in the gloves are off thing. And I do certainly agree that if you have two guys that are being almost too respectful and too polite, it could be a bit boring. I totally agree with that. So certainly a little bit of edginess, a little bit of bad blood is good to sell a fight, and it can actually be rather entertaining when you have this verbal jousting that you get. But I don't know. I don't much like either guy, to be completely honest. I don't have much time for either of their personalities. And this is why David Haye has a long track record of disrespecting opponents well beyond a line. Um, I mean, saying that he'll leave Bellew in a hospital in a coma, like I say, coming out of a year where young guys have been in comas from this sport, it's just crass. No matter how strongly he feels about Tony Bellew, that's beyond the pale. No professional athlete should speak like that. Um, and he has a long track record of just being disrespectful, and I would say arrogant, but some would say it's confidence. As for Tony Bellew, well, the thing about Bellew is sometimes, again, he really, really plays up the hard man image, and there's nothing wrong with that in a fighter, but sometimes I think he takes it too far. Like in the gloves are off things, and the gloves are off sequences, and some of the promos, and sometimes Bellew just sounds like he is more suited to be a hitman than a professional athlete. And I don't know, I think he just sounds like he could be a professional criminal sometimes. Like, actually, he sounds psychotic, quite frankly. Um, Now, whether that's a psychological thing to try and intimidate his opponents, I don't know. But I'm not sure if it's great for the image of boxing. Um, I don't know. I'm not going to be able to watch the fight live. As for who wins, well, difficult to tell. I'd put the edge on Haye. Um, I think he's been a bit more tested. Plus, he is a more natural heavyweight. But I think Haye would be making a mistake to underrate Bellew. Um, so I think it's going to be a good fight. But I just hope both guys kind of tone things down just a little bit because, in the end of the day, they're professional sportsmen. They shouldn't be acting like street thugs who want to kill each other. It's one thing having bad blood to sell a fight. It's another when that is really real. Um, I don't know because I think as fans we need to also be wary of that. One of my subscribers mentioned the press conference in Liverpool. I didn't watch all of that, but I watched a bit of it. And Hay kind of lost his temper at the end and called Bellew fans retards, and he said some pretty unprofessional things. On the other hand, Bellew fans were acting like dicks. The thing about boxing, I think one problem in this sport is that there's a lot of heat on, and there's a lot of pressure on fighters to be, conduct themselves in a professional way, and I think they should be. But I think there is not anywhere near enough expectation of fans. And it's a point I've made for a long time. And I know I'm in the minority. I know people will say it's just spirits, but I don't know. I've no problem with fans being passionate for their fighter, but sometimes it descends into just outright disrespect. And, when people actually want their fighter to kill another man and shit like that, it's just like, get a grip. Um, Having said that, Hay fans were no better a few years back with the Klitschko weigh-in. Um, According to Hay, they were spitting and throwing chairs. Now, if that's true, um, I hope those fans, face some sort of repercussions. I do think boxing needs to get serious. Like I say, not long ago in Montreal, there was a riot. There's no excuse for sports fans behaving that way. I don't care how strong your emotions are. Act like a fucking adult. Seriously, it's and I think some boxing fans have no self control. They're like little brats who need to express themselves by behaving that way. Real men have self control. That's the bottom line. So I get passion, but I don't think that's cool. I can't get into that sort of mentality. Um, Big atmosphere, totally different thing. I mean, what I sort of wonder is Bellew subconsciously thinking this is like Creed Part Two, because in the film Creed, there's that scene where he fights, Creed Junior, and it's a really electric atmosphere, 100,000 people. Well, I don't know what the attendance for this one's going to be, but certainly Chico Josh, where they're talking about 90,000 people, will be a British record actually beating, if that does come to fruition, that will actually beat Harvey McAvoy way back in 1939, I believe. Um, so, big fights are becoming a staple in this country, and that's great. I think this is a great time for British boxing. We have something like 15 to 18 world champions at the moment. Um, it's a really great time for British boxing, and for that reason, I think fighters need to have some self control. I'm not saying that all fighters should be really, like Klitschko. I think that's unrealistic, and I think it would be a little bit boring if all fighters were super polite and super respectful. I certainly don't expect that. And again, some animosity between fighters can be spicy. It can spice up the fight. I've no problem with that. But sometimes I think it can go too far. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, right? This is a really tough fight. Let's say it's a fight along the lines of McClellan Ben, right? And one of these guys gets seriously injured. Now, what sort of situation is that going to leave the sport in when there has been such vitriol beforehand? I think that's something that, because these guys are both professional boxers, they know the risks. They know at the back of their mind that's a real possibility in every fight. And I think when there's real animosity, the chances are increased because the punches are thrown with malice. Whereas in a regular fight, you just want to win the fight. So I do think they should tone it down just a little bit. Um, I'm sure it'll be a great fight, and I hope both guys come out healthy. I hope both guys come out standing, frankly, because I think when it gets this personal, there have been tragedies in the past. As far as I remember, there was real animosity between Ben and McClellan. Look how that ended. This is no joke. This is a dangerous sport, and fighters need to conduct themselves in a way that is, well, frankly, that doesn't make it look like they are mobsters who want to kill each other. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Who do you think will win? I give the edge to Haye simply because he has, I think he's a bit more seasoned. People say there's an age thing. I think he's in great condition for his age. And these days, 37 isn't exceptionally old in boxing. Boxers are getting older these days. I think Bellew is a real. I think one thing with Bellew is he's a bit underestimated because sometimes he's just seen as a brawler. I think there's a bit more to him than that. I think he has proved himself, and it should be a great fight. But I just hope that the animosity in this doesn't carry over into someone getting seriously hurt, because I think the chances of that happening sometimes are exasperated when the animosity is that deep. So, but hey, it might all be one big giant act. Who knows? Let me know your thoughts. Please keep it respectful. Cheers.